So yeah, I think this is a good time to do rank the games, any game that I've played in 2024, whether it be new, old, first playthrough, repeat. Some of these I haven't finished yet. I'm still playing them. Only a couple, maybe one I've given up on. But yeah, seems like a fun thing to do. Okay. So first we're going to do games that released this year. So these are all kind of jumbled up, so I'll have to go through them. But let's start with Astrobot. So my rankings are just a generic S, A, B, C, D, and I've added F. Usually it's just S, A, B, C, D. I've added F just for a little bit more nuance in some of the middle rankings. And there's a few games that released this year that I didn't play, but I wanted to. A couple of games I was going to check out the weekend my son happened to be born, so they're really on the back burner right now. I'll try and check them out probably early next year. But maybe let's start with those. Yeah, so Another Crab's Treasure is one I didn't play, but I want to play. Nine Souls, and then UFO 50. If I had to guess based on the gameplay I've seen from both Nine Souls and Another Crab's Treasure, they would probably be A or S for me. Both are very much my kind of gameplay. You have a kind of cutesy Souls-like with Another Crab's Treasure. Nine Souls is a Metroidvania with Sekiro-styled combat. All right up my alley. So, assuming they're not tedious or annoying or janky to play, which from what I've seen, they are not, they would probably go in the S or A category for me. I just need to play them to experience them to actually rank them. UFO 50 is an interesting one because I wouldn't consider myself a retro gamer, but this was definitely the game I watched the most from other streamers I follow this year. And it looks like a lot of fun. I checked out a couple of the games. I played one of them on Halloween, the point and click horror game. Had an absolute blast with that. And I've played another game, a golf game in it. So I have 48 other games to check out. Some of them, from what I can tell, I probably wouldn't like. Others I think I would really like. So I don't think it would land up in S for me, just given some of the games I wouldn't care for. But from what I've seen, the majority seem really good. So I bet this would fall into A for me, depending on how difficult, tedious, maybe old school, how committed to the old school mechanics they are of the older mechanics. Maybe it could fall at the top of B, but my guess is from what I've seen, from what I've played, 2 of the 50 games, it would fall into A. So yeah, these 3 are on the back burner in the backlog still. So that's where I'll be, probably starting off 2025. Gonna finish Black Myth Wukong. That's what I'm playing now. It's what I'm gonna play after I'm done with this. Speaking of, let's do Black Myth Wukong right now. Again, still early impressions, but from what I've seen so far, I really like it. It has, I guess we'd call it a Souls-like, but it's a little bit more, I don't know. The way I think about it is kind of like the sort of redone God of War combat. You have certain abilities that, like the spells you use, that you got to wait for them to sort of recharge. The bosses are difficult, but challenging, rewarding. I'm stuck on a boss right now, so we'll try and do that afterwards. But yeah, it's fun. It's basically a boss rush game. So as of right now, I'm not going to stick it up in S, but it is definitely going to go high A tier. Well, the only A tier game right now, but again, I'm only in chapter 2, so it could easily climb up to S, but as of right now, just comfortably sitting in the A. I'm really enjoying it so far. And also it looks really great on PC. I've heard the PS5 version kind of has had some issues, but as of right now, sitting comfortably in the A category. Animal Well, I'll get to Astrobot later. I have lots of fun things to say about Astrobot. Animal Well, it's a game I'm playing off stream, so some of these are games I've played off stream too. Animal Well is a game I'm playing on my Switch when I'm kind of going to bed at night occasionally. It's a cool, different Metroidvania from other ones I've played. It doesn't have any combat. It's all just puzzle solving. Really cool ambient music. So it's it's not a very intense game to fall asleep to. It's just kind of very chill music, I guess. The only way I can sort of describe it. But yeah, it's much more puzzle focused than combat, and that's not generally going to be my thing. But I think this is a very small dev team. don't know if it was one guy, but either way, it's a very small indie game. I was happy. I don't think it won anything at the Game Awards, but everyone that has played this has gotten high praise from it, and I'm liking it. It's just not always going to be my cup of tea. I need to do it in like short bursts because puzzles make my brain hurt. Something like that. I don't know. I come to video games for the kind of gameplay I want, which is more combat oriented, but I respect what's going on here, so I'm going to put it in the B category. Again, I'm still playing it, so it could go down, it could go up, like if something really catches me, but as of right now, sticking it in the B category. I should say the, B and C would be our mid tier. Mid just means middling, right? It's right in the middle. I still like the games I'm going to put in B. There's probably going to be a lot of aspects that I'll put in C, games that I'll put in C. D and F are the real bad games. But yeah, S, A, and B, I think there's a lot of praiseworthy things to say about the games that'll go up there. Another one that I'm playing off stream and just in sort of my own time is Tales of Kenzara Zao. This is another Metroidvania game, but it doesn't seem to be doing too much different from, like, it's not sort of going off the beaten path when it comes to Metroidvania. You just explore, you find a new ability, you fight some enemies, you fight a boss, right? And you move to a different area to explore, right? It plays really well. The combat's really nice and smooth. You get double jump to begin with, which is always great. It's pretty easy. It's not doing anything new. So I appreciate Animal Well for its creativity and sort of the, I guess, artistic vision behind it. And there's lots of artistic vision behind Zao as well, but I get more fun out of it. So as of right now, I think it's going to go above Animal Well in the B category. Still good, a lot to enjoy. I'm having fun with it, but I don't think it's going to be up to the caliber of what I think should go in S and A category. All right, let's do Astrobot. So Astrobot is easily an S tier game for me. I had such a blast playing this on stream. This was so much fun. So I didn't grow up really playing 3D platformers. Like I mentioned this several times while I was streaming this game, that I never played Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter. I have played Sly Cooper. We'll talk about him later. So, and I've also never played any of the 3D Mario games. So this was a really much like a breath of fresh air for me. Some people complained that like, oh, it's just doing the same thing that other 3D platformers are doing. But I don't know, even from people who have played those games, I've heard that this just does it really, really well. It was a nostalgia trip seeing some of the PlayStation, like it's a celebration of PlayStation history. And it was so much fun just to play through it. The combat was great, fun platforming, awesome music. Probably my favorite music of any game I've played this year. And just, yeah, it seems to be sort of starting I don't know if I'd call it a renaissance, but like it's kicking off PlayStation sort of returning to like respecting its older IP. There was a thing going around on Twitter, I think yesterday, that one of the heads of Sony or PlayStation right now is like, oh, we'll go back and take a look at some of our old IP. It's like, that's Astrobot seemed to be sort of the spark that ignited that people like these older style games, these sort of celebrating the history of PlayStation. So I just had such a blast. I was happy that it won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Yeah, just top tier game. So much fun. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Now, maybe it's controversial to have this on the list since it's not really its own game. Nevertheless, it was a sort of isolated gaming experience for me this year, so I want to talk about it. It's going to go up in S tier. I have yet to sort of decide if it's going to go above Astrobot. I don't really know whether or not. I was happy Astrobot won, but part of my soul was like, I kind of want Elden Ring to win Game of the Year again, just for the lols, just for the kick W's of it. But in any case, I had so much fun playing Shadow of the Erdtree. It kicked my ass. I liked that it reminded me of the best comparison I could think of was like, if you've ever played The Witcher 3, the Blood and Wine expansion of Witcher 3 was like its own separate entity, its own, like, here's another 50-hour experience. It could have been its own game. Obviously, you need the base game to buy it, so that's kind of the argument why it shouldn't have been counted, that Shadow of the Erdtree should not have been counted in consideration for Game of the Year awards. But nevertheless, I like the lore that was added to it. The bosses were really fun. Radahn kicked my ass. I fully admit I had to sort of fully switch my strategy around to beat him. I had to go with the sort of thick boy shield, poke him with the rapier behind the shield in order to beat him. I've yet to go back and play it again. I know they've nerfed it, but it was just awesome replaying Elden Ring. I'll talk about the base game in a little bit because I replayed it to go up to Shadow of the Erdtree, and that was just an experience. That was very early on, you know. When did it come out? June? Yeah, so my Twitch channel was still really young. It still is really young, but I was still trying to sort of get my feet wet in the Twitch space, and I was in my own little world playing Shadow of the Erdtree and just had so much fun. One I did not have fun with, I might get absolute hate for this, is Hellblade 2, Senua's Saga? Sacrifice? I forget which one's which. This is Hellblade 1, this is Hellblade 2. I did not care for Hellblade 2. I'll talk about Hellblade 1 later. Hellblade 2, I thought, was visually an absolutely stunning game. Very well acted, performance, the music was good, but I did not care one bit about the story in this game. I liked the story so much more. I liked the gameplay more in the first one. With this, it felt like there was no combat, which it's not a very combat-oriented game to begin with, but at least you get some in the first one. This just felt like, and this has been said to death, it felt like a glorified tech demo. If this did not come out on Game Pass, I would not have played this game. I would not have checked this out. At some point, I would have checked out the first one because it's on, like, typically on sale, but I just did not care, and I found the end of the story just very, I was just let down by it overall. It was, yeah, it just took everything I liked about the first one and watered it down. Some of the puzzles were better. There was one part where you're like going through like a cave system and it felt like you were in The Descent. That part was really cool. I liked that. That was like a cool horror part of this, but man, for the most part, I just really did not like this game. It didn't feel like it needed to exist. Hellblade 1 felt like a complete sort of like game to me. Like it didn't need a sequel. Yeah, I really couldn't tell you much about the story of this game. I don't remember much about it. It was just like, okay, Senua is having some weird experiences again. She teams up with a couple of people. One of them's a slaver. They fight some giants, and that's about it. That's all I can recall. It, like I said, it took everything I liked about Hellblade 1 and just sort of dwindled it down and made it shinier, basically. Made it better looking. Prince of Persia. This. Oh my god. For the longest time, this was my game of the year. I might have to rethink about where Shadow of the Erdtree will go. Anyway, I'll get to that later. I'll sort of look over the list at the very end. For a long time, for most of this year, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown was my game of the year. A Metroidvania that I felt like, I don't know, added to the Metroidvania genre with some mechanics that we hadn't seen before, but that seemed so obvious, like being able to take a picture of like where you're at, like basically a screenshot, and put it on the map. So that way when you get abilities later, you can go back to that spot and see like, oh, why did I mark this? Oh, I couldn't get to this ledge or something like that, right? Something really simple that, as far as I know, was not in the Metroidvania genre. Combat was fun. There were a few platforming sections that kicked my ass, but nothing that frustrated me beyond the point of like, I want to give up. Some difficult bosses, there were lots of like, I played it just on standard difficulty, but like you could crank the difficulty up on this and really get your ass kicked, or you could sort of tweak the various sort of sliders of like, just overall general difficulty. You could also tweak whether or not you lose like your magic power upon death, or every time you rest at like I don't know, their trees, their bonfire systems, that like you gain your magic back. Just little things like that I guess aid in accessibility. That's probably why it was up for an award for accessibility at the Game Awards. But I liked the story. I had never played a Prince of Persia game. I'm overdue to play Sands of Time, I know. So I understand why, like, probably long-term fans of this series didn't care for this. They didn't want a Metroidvania style. They wanted another 3D style or just something more familiar. I get it. But as a first-timer, this was so much fun. Great combat, great bosses, great platforming, great exploration. Story was okay. It was fine. It was acceptable. Gave me what I wanted. Easy S tier. I think this was hard to think about whether or not Astrobot. I think I just had overall just like, while I was playing Astrobot, I just, for most of the playthrough, just had a big smile on my face. So I can't, like, if I could bottle that sort of experience, that like that I think wins out over like, oh, just like sort of sometimes the get good nature of both of these games, right? So yeah, just for sheer just pleasure and enjoyment, Astrobot just sneaks out Prince of Persia, but I am doing nothing but singing the praises of Prince of Persia. All right, what is next? What are some other 2024 games? Rise of the Ronin. So this was like, other than Elden Ring, this was like the first game I played when I started my Twitch channel back in March. I was so looking forward to this game. I've never played the Neo games, but I did play what's it called, Wo Long, that came out last year. I had a ton of fun with that. So I was looking forward to, is it Team Ninja or Ninja Theory? I always get those two confused. Whoever the Neo devs are, they are the devs of Rise of the Ronin. And at first, I really was enjoying my time with it. I liked the historical Japanese setting that they were in. Sort of, it was a game I was actually interested in the story about, like, I think it was like the downfall of the shogunate and whether or not Japan should sort of remain isolationist or open up trade with the rest of the world, specifically the Americas. I was interested in that. Graphically, this game looks like, I guess maybe if I'm generous, a PS3 game. Normally graphics don't bother me, but since this was, I think, a PS5 exclusive, not sure, it could be PS4, it didn't look that good. I expected more from, you know, a more seasoned developer, right? The combat, though, I'm a big combat guy. It really disappointed me. Basically, it took elements of like Souls-likes, Sekiro, what I liked from Wo Long, and just sort of like did it worse. It just basically took things that I like from other games and just did them all worse. The open world is pretty bland. It wasn't very pretty. A lot of repetitive open world style missions, like the things that people complain about with Assassin's Creed games that I'm a big Assassin's Creed apologist. I always have fun with Assassin's Creed games, even with the repetitive nature of some of its missions and open world, I don't know, side stories and whatnot. I felt that with Rise of the Ronin. So this was just a huge letdown because I was like, when I first saw the trailer, I thought, oh man, this is going to be great. So much fun. You get all these different sort of abilities. You get a glider at one point. I found the parry system to be really frustrating, and I think my problem was, so it may be a me problem, I wanted this game to be more like Sekiro, whatever, and it just wasn't. So that's my fault. But nevertheless, it's the only game on here I did not finish. Like some games, like I've already talked about ones I'm still playing, that I'm gonna finish at some point. This, I don't know. I don't really see myself going back to it anytime soon. Maybe I'll give it another try down the road, but I was super let down. Nevertheless, I still did play about like 20 to 25 hours of it. So I was having fun here and there. I can't deny that. It's just, it eventually wore me down. So it's not like with Hellblade, I don't think it really needed to exist. I don't, take that however you want. With Rise of the Ronin, I think they had an idea. They just didn't do enough to like make it good, basically. So this is going to go in D for me. a dud. I just, yeah, disappointment. D for disappointment, because I was hyped for it and I was let down. I wanted it. Basically, I wanted it to sort of fit the mold of another game I liked. That's on me, not the game's fault necessarily. But here we are. In that same sort of vein, a game that I wanted to be like something else but wasn't, but I still enjoyed, is Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 is going to go up an A for me. So I started out playing this on stream, but then sort of spooky season was over and I was like, I still want to keep playing it, but I wanted to do something else when I'm live streaming. So I finished this off stream, and my first introduction to the Silent Hill series. I really liked this. Sort of paralleling what I just said about Rise of the Ronin, wanting it to be something else. I wanted this to be a bit more like Resident Evil, and that's on me because I've played some of the Resident Evil remakes. I'll talk about actually some of those later. Really enjoy, well, most of these. This is much more puzzle based, not as much combat focused. I thought the story was interesting. I thought it was pretty obvious where it was going, but I had never played the original, which I'm sure shocked a lot of people back in the, was it PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 1? One of those two, right? I remember like when the first trailer came out for this, a lot of people were really down on how it looked. Like, oh no, well, it captured the vibe and aesthetic of the original. And then, you know, people are singing its praises, and I liked it too. Puzzles kind of irritate me after a little while. I think it was just a bit too long, but overall, I can't deny, like, there were parts that scared me, I guess. You know, horror's my favorite genre of movie, so it really didn't scare me, but like, you know, it made me jump. It was haunting in some parts, especially with its sound design. So I think Astrobot as my favorite soundtrack of the year for video games. Silent Hill 2 has my favorite sound design. Like, you could hear things sort of creepy crawling around you, like, before you see them. The ambient music was really good too, sort of like just great sound effects. Yeah, I got the what's it called, the in water ending, I think, in the lake, whatever, the one where he dies. And I was kind of shocked. I would looked up like, okay, what do you do to get that? And like, you basically like can't heal James very much throughout, and I didn't think I did that, but whatever. I bet I'll go back and do a New Game Plus playthrough of this, because I know you can get like the chainsaw and basically mow through basic enemies, so that could be kind of fun. Yeah, bosses were okay. Pyramid Head, very cool design. You know, I've heard about Pyramid Head before, so that wasn't new to me. But overall, great remake. I liked it a lot. Just not as much on the level of these. And like I said, I am liking Black Myth more than this. This is more my thing, and that's why this could probably go up here. Silent Hill 2 very comfortably sitting in the A tier. What else came out this year? We have, I think, two more. Stellar Blade. This, nope, not there. This one's hard. I think as a whole experience, I like Silent Hill 2 more. Stellar Blade, I liked in certain chunks. I think this is the first console release for this dev team. As a action combat oriented game, I thought the boss fights were a lot of fun. The basic enemies were very repetitive, kind of so-so, right? But the bosses were a lot of fun. This felt like a much easier Sekiro style combat. Like, it gave me the combat I wanted in Rise of the Ronin, with quick parries that I could execute. Maybe I was just shit at parrying in Rise of the Ronin. That's a possibility. Nevertheless, didn't get along with the parry system in this. Loved the parry system in this and the cool flashy abilities. The bosses felt very different and unique from one another. The story was okay, very post-apocalyptic sort of thing that I thought we've seen before. Eve as a character is okay. People sort of over-sexualized her, of course. Side characters, okay. Some of the side missions were, you know, heartfelt and just fine. The open world itself, very bland, desolate. So basically what I'm saying is, like, I liked the boss fights. Everything in between was sort of mid, I guess. But I can't deny that I had fun. So it's going to go in the A. Because I was impressed. Like, it also looked pretty good. Like, for a first-time console developer, I think they made like a mobile game before this. Nevertheless, for a first-time console game, I was impressed. I look forward to seeing what they do next. Hopefully just the more in-between moments, in between the boss fights, are a bit more engaging for me. Fun, flashy combat, not too hard. I recommend it. And I think the last new game on here is Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. So it's been a long time since I played a Dragon Ball game. Like, I think since the Budokai Tenkaichi games back in like the PlayStation 2 era. And it's been also a long time since I've watched any Dragon Ball Z. I'd never watched Dragon Ball Super. And I bought this on a whim just to play by myself. I'm really not that big into fighting games, so I didn't do any of the online modes for this. I just played some of the story. I did Goku's story, Vegeta's scenario, Frieza's scenario. I think that was it. There was lots of other, and Jiren's. There were lots of other ones I just didn't do, but I had a lot of fun with this game. Like, this got me back into a Dragon Ball kick for a bit. I actually went back and watched Dragon Ball Super for the first time. That was a lot of fun catching up with that. I felt like a teen again, kid again, just basically watching this series that like I knew the original story of Dragon Ball Z, and I think I remember watching Dragon Ball GT back in the day, and I don't know, it made me nostalgic again for that anime I grew up with, and it plays really well. There are some fights in this in the story mode that are really hard, that like they will kick your ass if you don't know the mechanics, if you can't like sort of teleport and retaliate at the exact perfect time. Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested if they release some story DLC with this. Like, you don't get Broly's story in this, and the Broly movie is really good. So I would like to see that. Yeah, it's sort of, given that it made me sort of re-interested in a media, a genre, whatever, a series that I hadn't been interested in a while, I've got really nothing negative to say about it, other than its game loop sort of gets old quickly. That's why I didn't do all of the other story scenarios. I just did the ones I wanted to do, and then I was like, okay, I've had my fill. That's it. So it's gonna go. I like Silent Hill 2 more. Stellar Blade, the boss fights were a lot of fun, but I don't know. These might be tied essentially. But like I said, since Dragon Ball Sparking Zero got me back into a franchise, right? It's just like away from, my gaming setup. Like, I have to give it props for that, right? So for right now, I'll put it above Stellar Blade. And like I said, like all of the games in the BAS, I have mostly positive things to say about. All right, so I guess basically that is my, 2024 tier list ranking of the games that released this year. Like I said, Another Crab's Treasure, Nine Souls could probably go up in the A, maybe S. I don't know. I know they're my kind of sort of combat gameplay loops. UFO 50 probably could fit up here too. Some games of the 50 I'll really like. Two I know I definitely like, and others probably aren't going to be my thing. So yeah, I guess my game of the year is Astrobot, right? Yeah, but that's not the end of this list. I also want to talk about games that I played for the first time, older games I played for the first time, and also games I've, just replayed. Hellblade 1. I was kind of surprised how much I liked Hellblade 1. I'd heard about it for a long time. I'd heard it was kind of not a walking sim, but very story-driven puzzles, very repetitive puzzles. The combat was okay. What really impressed me the most with Hellblade 1 was the sound design. Like, I think the sound design in Hellblade 1 knocks Hellblade 2 out of the park. Like, you could really, I think because there is more combat in Hellblade 1, the voices that Senua hears, you can hear a voice like over here, right? It's like, he's behind you, and like that, when to dodge, right? I thought that was just better implemented. The voice work, the sort of portrayal of psychosis that Senua has, was better portrayed, better utilized as a gameplay element in Hellblade 1 over Hellblade 2. Yeah, so I was surprised how much I liked it. Nevertheless, it still is a game I don't ever see myself replaying. It was a very short experience, so there's something for that. One thing I forgot to say with Hellblade 2, I don't know how people played this game for like 40 plus hours. Yes, it's pretty. There's a lot to look at, but at the end of the day, I think it took me like a grand total of 9 hours, and I wasn't speedrunning or anything, but whatever. So Hellblade 1's going to sit and see. I just said all that positive stuff about it. Nevertheless, it's still not exactly my kind of thing, but I wasn't disappointed about it. So because like I went in with low expectations and came away with a positive experience, that sort of boosts it from what I would probably put it in the D category to the C category. Maybe there's no rhyme or reason for that, but that's where it sits. Games I played for the first time. Little Nightmares 1 and 2. I think I played these during the Halloween season. A little bit more, side-scrolling, puzzle-based games. I'd mentioned when I played these that like it felt like if you could take like sort of the Tim Burton, Henry Selick kind of movies that we see, this claymation stop motion, and make those into video games. That's the way these felt to me. And I like those movies. I like Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, Corpse Bride, all those, so on and so forth, right? So yeah, these just sort of appealed to me. I liked them a lot. They were fun to play for the first time around spooky season. Nice short experiences, not very difficult. Some interesting lore, especially with the second one. The first one I like a bit more than the second one, so I think I would put Little Nightmares 1 at the bottom of the A tier, and then Little Nightmares 2. So far I'm liking Zao a bit more. That's more I like Metroidvanias. That's more my gameplay style. Little Nightmares 2, I think, went on a little bit too long, and there were some parts that I found really unforgiving. Like, you need to be, like, pixel perfect to get beyond just basically get to the checkpoint, right? So a little bit unfair, but yeah, Little Nightmares 1, I'll put that at the bottom of the A tier. Really interesting, sort of cutesy, spooky idea that I think worked really well. Little Nightmares 2, still good. I just didn't like it as much as the first one. I'm excited for I think the third one's supposed to come out next year, so that'll be hopefully released around Halloween. That'll be fun to play. So looking forward to that. Both positive experiences, though. Games I've played for the first time. I'm going to talk about those two together. Pokemon Y, I'm still playing. This was a game I played on I don't even have a 3DS. It's technically a 2DS. It was like anytime I took a flight, it was the game I played. And I'm still not done with it, but I'm a Pokemon fan, so I enjoy it. But it is pretty easy. Like, it was the first sort of, like, I think 3D of the mainline games. Yeah, it's okay so far. It's really easy. So if you want a super easy Pokemon game, play Pokemon X or Y. But it's still Pokemon. I like it. It's just more of the same of everything that Pokemon fans know and like, or maybe dislike or something like that. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna stick it in the C category. I like it. At this point, it's more of Pokemon. At least with some of the newer games, there's some newer elements. This was just like, since I didn't play it when it first came out and sort of be in awe of like, oh, it's in 3D, that's cool, that's different, and it's really easy. I'm gonna stick it there. I'm liking it. I haven't played it in a while, so it's still ongoing, but it's Pokemon. I like Pokemon. Played for the first time. Yet another game that I'm still playing. Ongoing. It's actually the other game I'm playing on my Switch right now with Animal Well is Sea of Stars. So I wouldn't say categorically, but for the most part, not a JRPG fan. You'll notice Metaphor ReFantazio is not here. The Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is not on here. Too long, turn-based combat. Well, I say that. The Final Fantasy Rebirth doesn't have turn-based combat, but nevertheless, I'm contradicting myself. With traditional JRPGs, I'm not a fan of turn-based combat. They tend to go on way too long. And I was asking around some friends that like JRPGs if they could recommend JRPGs that are slightly shorter than the very bloated 50, 60 plus Final Fantasy length. That also, has some okay turn-based combat. Sea of Stars was on sale. They recommended that. I'm liking it so far. I'm only a few hours in. So I don't know where the story's going yet, but so far the mechanics I'm enjoying. The very sort of cutesy world I'm liking. I guess it has combat, so I like it a bit more than Animal Well. It's another game I'll have to report back on when I've sort of had my final thoughts. I know it's not bloated to 50, 60 hours, so maybe a more focused experience. Maybe I'll like that more. I'm still not completely sold on turn-based combat, and yet I like Pokemon. Don't question me on that. I have nostalgia for Pokemon. I don't have nostalgia for traditional JRPGs. But I'm going to keep playing it, see how my thoughts what my thoughts are after playing it. I also want to play in next year. I bought Chrono Trigger because it was on sale. That's another JRPG I've heard praises about. It's not too long of game from what I've seen. And I don't know, it just doesn't have some of the elements that I don't like in other traditional JRPGs. So if I like Sea of Stars and if I like Chrono Trigger, who knows? Maybe there could be a JRPG sort of reawakening for me. But as of right now, I'm liking it, sticking it in the B category. It has combat, so I like it more than Animal Well. The Devil in Me, and then we'll end games I've played for the first time that are not new with Legend of Zelda and Super Mario World. The Devil in Me. So these are like what are they called? The Dark Pictures Anthology, the sort of Until Dawn knockoffs that are nowhere near as good as Until Dawn. My wife and I like to play these games. We typically play them around Halloween and sort of make the choices together. They're fun. They're short. This one I was a bit let down on. I like some of the other ones a lot more. Also, for a later PS4 game into PS5 game, it doesn't look very good. It's kind of slow. The scares aren't that great. So if I were to ever do a ranking of like the Until Dawn knockoffs with like Until Dawn, The Quarry, all the Dark Pictures games, this would probably be on the lower end. So yeah, I didn't care for this one as much. It is just more of the same gameplay loops. It's going to go below Rise of the Ronin. Played with my wife. It was still okay, but not one I'm ever going to play again. I didn't play the Until Dawn remake. I didn't want to spend $60 on that. Hold off until that's on sale, but Until Dawn is phenomenal. I prefer that game over any of these Dark Pictures knockoffs. So yeah. Okay, so those are all the games that I've played for the nope, I'm wrong. Back up. 2 biggies. All right, this is going to get me in trouble. Super Mario World and Link to the Past, basically like the two titans from what I've heard of the SNES era. Super Mario World, oh boy. This is going to go to the top of C tier. I'm sorry. Yes, shock, gasp, boo, you stink. Here, I'll do it.
Bite my shiny metal ass. Boo, you stink!
I know. It's entirely a me problem. Here's the way I sort of felt about it when I was playing this game. This is a hugely influential game, beautifully made. If I had played this as a kid, this was the first Mario game I ever played, like other than like Mario Kart, Mario Party, right? First like mainline real Mario game, right? If I grew up playing this, had the time to develop the skills and sort of like basically had endless hours to do it over and over and over again, memorize the maps, get it right, sort of develop those muscle memories and reflexes, probably would love this game. I don't have that nostalgia. I did not grow up with a lot of Nintendo stuff other than like Pokemon. But nevertheless, I still recognize that this is a phenomenal game, hugely influential. I just wanted to be done with it. I wasn't enjoying it. I was just dying a lot. It was just platforming for platforming's sake. I prefer platforming with combat thrown in. I don't like that, it's the older model of the one hit you're dead kind of platforming. Astrobot has that too, but Astrobot's a lot more forgiving. So, basically like every time I died, it was like the you died pop up in Souls games. The way some people describe their hatred of Souls games. Like, it's just like, oh, I'm just dying over and over again. I'm not getting any better. This is just frustrating. That's how I felt playing Super Mario World. I recognize that it's one of the best games of all time by any sort of objective measures you want to throw at me. Subjectively, I didn't have fun with it. I'm probably not going to play it again. I enjoy watching people play ROM hacks, SMW ROM hacks, because it's like, wow, I could never do that. That's awesome. Like, just phenomenal talent on display. I suck at it. It is entirely a me problem, a skill issue. But this is my tier list, my sort of enjoyment across the scale. You know, when I did overcome a challenge, I was like, oh yeah, let's go, let's keep going, right? Is that sort of catharsis of getting it, overcoming the challenge, right? But most of the time I was just like bashing my head against a fucking wall, and yeah, it sort of wore on me after a while. So that's why it goes at the top of C tier. Admittedly, it's not the worst thing in the world, but for most people, it probably should go above Astrobot. I understand, but that wasn't my experience with it. A game I did have a lot of fun with, though, after playing Super Mario World, I was like, oh god, are all these old SNES games just going to kick me in the ass, just be so unforgiving and brutal? Like, are they games that like you had to grow up with in order to sort of see the magic in them? Link to the Past, thankfully, was not like that. I absolutely loved Link to the Past. Just like with Mario, this was my first Super Mario World. This was my first Mario game. I've never played a Zelda game. This was the first Zelda game I played. I didn't want to do Zelda 1 or Zelda 2. Thought the mechanics looked a little bit too old for my tastes. Link to the Past, though, was just awesome. The game looks really good. It still plays really well. The exploration was great. The variety of items and magic that you get were like not overwhelming, not like death by choice, but just like sort of the right amount. It just seemed to hit like all of the marks of like, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying exploring these dungeons. The overworld's not too big. The sort of mechanics involved in the game actually help you. The bosses present a challenge, but without being like some bullshit, except for what's his name, Moldorm. That thing can get in the bin. I got knocked off so many times fighting that damn worm. I think it's called Moldorm. Whatever. Everyone that's played this game knows what I'm talking about. Other than that boss fight, and I get it was probably a limitation of the time. Like when Link is swinging his sword, you can't change direction while swinging. It's just like if you're swinging this way, you can only swing this way. You got to stop, turn, swing this way. So it's very four directional. I get it. That's a limitation of probably the design of the time. I loved this game. It's not gonna go up in S tier for me. I don't know, like maybe on like replays of it, it'll go up. But I still really, really, really liked this game, so it's probably gonna go here. Like I said, Black Myth has the chance to go up, but until I'm sure, it's gonna go right there. Yeah, just for now. That could go up here. Link to the Past, though, easy top of the A tier for me. Phenomenal game. Yeah, had an absolute blast. It didn't overstay as welcome also. Like it wasn't short, but it wasn't like, oh, here's a 40-hour sort of dredge of like collectathons and shit like that. No, you had a very clearly defined goal. Collect all the crystals, find hearts and whatnot, and go beat Ganon. It's great. Let's just sort of work backwards here. Actually, let's talk about Elden Ring. So again, like I said, I've played all these games before. I won't, go on about them for too long. Elden Ring, easily one of my favorite games of all time. I like the base game more than Shadow of the Erdtree. Still really like Shadow of the Erdtree, so that's why it sits there. As like gaming experience, I preferred Prince of Persia and Astrobot over sort of isolating Shadow of the Erdtree, but Elden Ring, the base game, I remember when that came out in 2022, before I started streaming, right? So just prop down in front of my TV and just playing it for hours on end. I love the Souls-like combat. The open world exploration was phenomenal. I like the lore in this game. It's just basically like bunch of brothers and sisters hating each other, and it's basically the whole story of the game. Absolutely phenomenal. to me, one of the best games of all time. Last of Us Part 1, I played this, I think back in September. I think it was like the first day of fall. I played the whole thing in one sitting. Took me about 6 hours. I just did it on easy, just to like easy and New Game Plus, just to sort of plow through it. I love this game. Ooh boy, now this gets hard. Yes, Last of Us Part 1, you can argue it's a PS5 cash grab. I don't care. I love it. I don't get people that hate the combat in this game. I'm not a big shooter person, cover shooter, but I really like this. Elden Ring's great, but it's never a game that like I'm gonna go back and just like replay all the time. I think in terms of the Souls likes, it has the best like some of the best replayability because you can try out different builds, especially in New Game Plus, where you can easily sort of switch out builds. Last of Us Part 1, I think is just a very not easily digestible in the sense of its story, but like from a gameplay perspective, you can play it in one sitting. I never get tired of its story, of the parts of it. I think at some point I want to do a grounded playthrough. I've never done a grounded playthrough of the game. This might be blasphemous to some people. I say I like sort of Metroidvania and Souls-like combat, but I don't know, just as a complete package, I really don't have much to complain about with, or anything to complain about with The Last of Us Part 1. So yeah, I like Last of Us Part 1 slightly more than Elden Ring. Sue me. Sly Cooper. I am so happy that these are released on the PS5 natively. Like, you don't have to stream them from the I was going to say PlayStation Now. That's the old one. PlayStation Plus service. The original Sly Cooper. So, as I mentioned when I was talking about Astrobot, I didn't grow up playing a lot of the classic PlayStation platformers. The PlayStation platformer I did play was Sly Cooper. That was my PlayStation mascot, right? I like Sly 2, Sly 3. I like even Sly 4, gasp, more than Sly 1. I still like the game, but there are parts that I think are outdated isn't the right word, but just for lack of a better word, it's just older gameplay mechanics, kind of like Super Mario World. The one hit you're dead unless you have some sort of charm to avoid enemies. I prefer having a health bar, okay? And Sly 2 has more of an open world. This is much more mission-based. So Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, I still had fun playing it. That last level can be kind of bullshit at times. Sometimes to avoid that, I, just sort of tediously got up to 99 lives just so I wouldn't have to restart a level over again. I think it's going to go... this might get me in trouble. No. Bottom of B. No. I'd rather play Sly 1 again than Super Mario World, and this is just too easy. Yeah. I think it's going to go there. Sly Cooper, the Thievius Raccoonus, bottom of B tier. I like it. There's definitely some nostalgia there. I'm, you probably looking through it through rose-tinted glasses a bit, but yeah, just not my favorite. Still like it, though. Sly 2, though, this is one of my best favorite games of all time. Probably going to go there. God, do I really have it above Elden Ring? Good Lord. I just played it. It's a tight race. There's probably nostalgia here for sure. I just finished playing Sly 2. There are some missions I don't care for, but as a whole, I love it. I love, again, it just sort of took what worked about Sly 1 and just made it so much better with the sort of open worlds to explore. There's some collectathon stuff if you want to do that. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. I don't want to go on too much longer with this, but I love this game. I was really happy that it came out on PS5. I still have yet to replay Sly 3. Love that too. I hope, again, with the sort of resurgence of respect for, I guess, PlayStation IP, I hope we get a continuation of... I hope we get Sly 5, because we've been sitting on the cliffhanger of Sly 4's ending for God, is it like 11 or 12 years now? I think I saw the other day. Yeah, love this franchise. The Resident Evil games, I played these just off stream, I think like over summer when I was bored or something like that. Resident Evil 2 remake. This was my first Resident Evil game. No, it's not going down there. Probably there. Yeah, I love this game. This got me into survival horror. Never really, despite being a big horror movie fan, sometimes playing horror games get a bit tedious because you get a lot of the run and hide mechanics, the sort of hide and seek sort of style that you see in Amnesia and Alien. The Alien game that I can't think of, brain fart. Alien Isolation. Resident Evil 2, though, like I said when talking about Silent Hill 2, is a bit more action focused, a bit more combat focused. This was my first of the Resident Evil remakes, just Resident Evil games in general. I still haven't played the original. Yeah, absolutely love this game. I like that you get 2 scenarios that are basically the same thing, but it gives you an excuse to play more of the game. I'm not sure which I like more, Resident Evil 2 remake or Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 remake was definitely my game of the year last year, even though it was a remake. But anyway, love it. I really don't have any negatives about it. Resident Evil 3 remake, though, was pretty disappointing. Where to put this? Upon replay, I didn't care for this as much. I like that it's short. Well, it's a double-edged sword. It's short, so replayability is super high. But also, from what I know, I haven't played the original. They cut a lot of interesting content from there. Fighting Nemesis over and over again is pretty boring. Got some okay main characters, some comically evil villains. But yeah, not my favorite. It's probably going to go to the bottom of C tier. Just a big letdown. It felt like glorified DLC for Resident Evil 2 instead of its own standalone thing. So yeah, there it goes. Bottom of C tier. Resident Evil Village. I still have yet to play Resident Evil 7. I keep sort of, I don't know, waiting for the right time. Maybe it'll be, I had planned on playing it this October. Life gets in the way as it does and just ran out of time. From what I've seen, I think I'll really, really like that game. I like Resident Evil Village a lot. Not as much as the 2 or 4 remake. Yeah, we'll put it there. More combat than Silent Hill 2, not as puzzle heavy, at least with the first 2 sort of biomes, I guess you call them, areas, whatever, the castle, and then the house where you're without your weapons. Nice variety there. The second half kind of falls off a bit. Still fun. Becomes kind of dumb action at that point, but like, yeah, the first half of this game is absolutely phenomenal. Not as good. Second half, still really good. Still really, it's okay. Yeah, I think I'll put it there. Like it more than Silent Hill 2. Not as much as where I currently have Black Myth or Link to the Past. Blasphemous, I think this was the first game I played this year. I actually got my PlayStation Portal, which for a long time felt like a waste of money up until its kind of more recent updates. I replayed Blasphemous. This sort of sparked my love of the Metroidvania genre. Took what I love about Souls and added fun exploration, really cool 16-bit 2D animation. Difficult, but not stupidly unfair. Some bosses, but for the most part, very generous. Not very generous, but not unfair. That's what I'm trying to say. I still need to play Blasphemous 2. I've heard good things about that as well. This is going to go... No, not down there. Probably at the bottom of S tier. I love this. It is one of my favorite games. One of my favorite Metroidvanias. Like it more than anything here at the moment, but not quite as much as some of these. Yeah. Had a blast replaying it. And finally, Bloodborne. I played this on my birthday. It'll probably be my birthday game from here on out. It only took me I was just doing a New Game Plus run through to get the platinum. I was only missing 1 trophy to, I think it was like kill Gehrman, but not kill Moon Presence. That ending. It's the one ending I didn't get for the platinum. Took me like 2 or 3 hours. That's a flex, I guess. It was New Game Plus, so it wasn't that hard. This is my favorite game of all time. Yeah. this will always be top of S tier for me, unless something more amazing comes along. People complain about the 30 frames per second. I really didn't notice it. Maybe because I have shit eyes or something. I don't know. I love it. Is my tier list of all of the games I've played in 2024. Let's go and sort of take a look at them. So yeah, still, yeah, want to play these. I don't have these in any particular order of ones I want to play, probably in that order. These two are on Game Pass, thank goodness. And this is sort of a sales pitch for UFO 50. I think it's still only $25 on Steam, so that's like 50 cents a game if you want to think about it that way, right? Absolutely get it. From what I've played and seen so far, totally worth it. Yeah, my least favorite game of the year. Those two are good there. Maybe I'm being too harsh on Resident Evil 3. I would rather replay it than... I'm sorry, Super Mario World fans. I'm gonna incur your wrath. It's a game I respect more than I enjoy. That's all I can say. Yeah, that looks good. B, I'm still playing Zao. I like it. It's just not doing much different with the Metroidvania style. It's pretty easy and straightforward. Looks pretty. Still, early in the story. Little Nightmares 2. Yeah, Sea of Stars. JRPGs aren't my thing. I'm liking it so far, but we'll see. Annabelle Well, more puzzle-based. Thievius Raccoonus. I respect it as the game that brought us Sly Cooper, but it kind of has older mechanics I'm not as fond of. Working up from A tier. Really liked Little Nightmares. Great, fun, short, little puzzle-based game. Doesn't overstay its welcome. Spooky, cool atmosphere. Stellar Blade, great combat. Middle... in between bosses, not as much fun. Yes. I did really like Silent Hill 2. Do I like Village more? I probably need to replay Silent Hill 2 to just experience it once more, without stumbling through the puzzles slowly. Like I said, it just barely overstayed its welcome, I thought. But still really enjoyed it. We're going to switch to Black Myth Wukong here in a second. Really liking it. It's just basically a glorified boss rush game. To some people that might not float your boat, but to me, it's a lot of fun. Absolutely love Zelda Link to the Past. And then Astrobot is my 2024 game of the year, just narrowly beating out Prince of Persia. Shadow of the Erdtree, not its own game. Should it be considered? I don't know. I'm including it up here. I don't know. Would I rather play? Yeah, I like Astrobot, but I think I get more replay value out of Resident Evil 2. And these are obviously these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These top 5 are in my top 10 games of all time. There's some in between Bloodborne and Last of Us Part 1, but yeah. So yeah, I'm satisfied with this list. So we'll leave it at that.